It's the hands-on review of the new Zelos Starfighter. Let's go! The Zelos Starfighter is the latest mechanical chronograph from the most prolific microbrand in the market today. The diameter measures in at 41mm without a crown and pushers. The lug-to-lug distance is 48mm that may appear longer due to its angled and narrow lug shape. The lug width is 22mm, that's a modest size for strap options. We measured an 11mm thickness without the crystal. This is a considerable improvement over the previous mechanical chronographs despite having an automatic rotor. The Starfighter uses an ETA 2894 caliber that has a 42-hour power reserve and 28,800 bph. It's very deceptive how all of the angles of this case conspires to make it look longer than its measurements are suggesting. These same angles, however, contribute to how it wears and visually pleases your eyes. The level of refinement in this watch is certainly amazing. I had to do a double take and ensure I wasn't handed a zenith instead. Its 48mm lug distance just overshoots my 6¼ inch wrist, but the steep angle that it dives under the sides of your wrist makes it feel smaller upon wearing. The pushers and crown will literally shoot out of the case, something vintage watch lovers would, well, love. Say what you will about ETA movements, but it never gets old upon operation. The date switches appropriately. Setting the time is relatively smooth for its price point. It's when the pushers are activated that makes us all warm inside and satisfied until the next push is made. It's snappy as can be, and the flyback action is equally gratifying. Down to the bracelet, the taper provides comfort with its smaller articulate links. The polished sides and brush facets deliver a modern aesthetic and light play that is gorgeous to behold. Each link uses screw pins, so resizing is quick and convenient. The now famous micro-adjust clasp is present here as well, so there's more than enough sizing opportunities. My favorite part of this watch is the clever use of leading lines and dramatic angles. This side profile achieves two things. One, it creates a slimmer impression for that already slim case, and two, it extends to the lugs that integrates these parts together. This step under the case also gives a lot of room for your wrist to move around if needed. The visual contrast of sharp straight lines against the round pushers is very interesting to observe. The lovely polish on the rounded sides is mind-blowing for something that is under the $4,000 budget. This is all amplified by the clear sheen of scratch-resistant coating that's applied to this watch. The clasp is well built and solid, that needs to be said, but I feel this bracelet deserves a smaller and slimmer enclosure. The case back displays the ETA workhorse movement that should be easy enough to service but lacks the decoration of other mechanical movements. To offset this, Zelos added a darkened rotor to distract you from the generic movement plates. I like the rotor cutouts as it looks like turbine blades for this aerospace-inspired watch. Under 20 times of magnification, we can see how the dial and smaller details of this timepiece exhibits all the familiar Zelos flair we all have come to love. The dial has a deeply textured, swirling pattern that is a signature of the brand. The ceramic bezel has these small, laser-clear numerals that pops in and out of light streaks. We have a sign crown and sign rotor that provides adequate branding details without overexposing identity. I like how Zelos always tries to offer extra value wherever it could. Many of these details are tastefully done, yet you could understand that it's not that hard or costly to apply. We don't expect hand finishing at this price range, but Zelos won't settle with just a solid rotor and call it a day. The dial side, however, is where all of the luxury seems to be converging. I mean, just marvel at the streaming light that runs along this surface. There's a subtle gradient that provides contrast against the applied markers. This beautifully complements the shiny, narrow bezel. It delivers so much value by the many different ways it manipulates light. On the subject of light, here's a customary Zelos Loom Shot that's pretty hard to beat. This blue hue treads the line of vibrant and calm. The red accent provides the spice that it needs to escape the monochromatic territory. We've explored much of what makes the Starfighter aesthetically pleasing, but Zelos fans know that that's just half of the fun. All these eccentric colors and design works great with various strap options available to you. The quick-release bracelet detaches out of the way in mere seconds, so you can strap in your favorite NATO or strap. I began to play around with a matching colored NATO. This would go well with more casual attires and gives a more rugged feeling. It will increase the case height a bit, but that's expected with all fabric straps that passes under the case. With the 48mm lug distance, you may also experience some overhang for smaller wrists. I switched this one up with a gray NATO to match the steel case, and the personality of the piece just changes drastically. Now the attention is more on the dial rather than the whole watch. Next, I used a leather Horween strap from my titanium swordfish, and I have now created the most vintage looking and pleasing combination in my humble opinion. I mean, it looks like an Octavia's more flamboyant cousin if I ever saw one. This combination alone is reason enough to own this model. Let's cap this off with a sailcloth strap. This makes it more utilitarian and more prepared for all the hard work and tough weather you can put it through. There's slightly more creative straps out there, but most will go back to the original sophisticated bracelet. Now let's throw this Starfighter into the ring with some of the watches in the collection. Against the Submariner, it definitely looks slimmer because of those lugs, but the overall impression is not that far off. The case height is identical, both are sleeve-friendly. All the intricate facets of the case and bracelet renders the Submariner rather simple and reserved. Against the Speedmaster Mark II, the rounder profile is closer to the proportions of the Starfighter. Those lugs stretch out further versus the lugless Mark II, and that raised crystal also adds to the height of this Zelos. Beside each other though, you can see the vintage aspirations of the Starfighter. Beside its brothers, this chronograph feels just at home. We can see they come from the same family even though the swordfish and blacktip hail from different design directions. The swordfish here exhibits the same angular cues that can be found on this younger model. The diving lugs and sharp angles are all inherited by this chronograph. Even the bracelet bears some similarities. The swordfish looks raw compared to the refined angles of the Starfighter. The blacktip is very streamlined and a lot curvier. Despite such, the shape of the Starfighter is closer to this one than that of the swordfish. The leading lines we saw earlier is also found in the blacktip, just in a curvier form. The case height is significantly higher and visually more compact compared to the blacktip's flat bezel and dial. There are 5 different models to choose from with varying materials for the dials such as meteorite and aventurine. Pricing begins at $13.99 with a limited number for each model. This chronograph manages to achieve a condensed profile with its clever use of angles and tapers for its case and bracelet. I'm pleasantly surprised too how the hands, pushers, and crystals portrays a vintage styling while the rest of the watch displays more modern directions. It resonates the qualities of the El Primero line while remembering its unconventional microbrand heritage. Yes, I dare say heritage at this point, because it may be called the Starfighter, but it's undeniably Zelos. It's a compact and slim wearing chronograph in the typical Zelos flavor. We've got a winner. It's still hot. Cut!